Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to do another grass seed test. We're going to test the lawn seed blankets with actual seed in these that you guys have seen a lot of places use. We're going to test peat moss to see if this is really beneficial or help the grass seed. And we're also going to test this. This is a seed germination blanket that is used for seed, very similar to straw or hay that a lot of companies, landscapers use. So stay tuned and we'll find out what is the best method together. Welcome back. This is Mike with Jealous Lawn Care, and thank you for joining me for once again another lawn care test. What are we testing today? What we are testing is grass seed test number 2. You guys have hopefully already seen my first grass seed test that I did 2 years ago, and that was very popular. You guys enjoyed it, loved it, so here is a part 2. So we're going to take this one step further and really test grass seed to make sure we got the absolute best method for grass seed growth. We already did a good job with figuring out which is the right seed in the last video, and also how much is the right seed and other things like that in the last video. So now we're going to take it one step further and say, okay, now that we know the ideal amounts and the right seeds to use, now we're going to take it one step further. A lot of you have sent me messages and said, hey, I want to see a video based upon people using like a hay type, or based upon, hey, if you use moss, is this going to help it? Is it going to speed it up? Is it going to be better for the lawn in general? Is it going to make it greener after it's grown? A lot of questions about moss, peat moss specifically. So, and then this guy, we're going to test this lawn seed blanket. So what this is, and I'll show you real close. So this is a blanket that just lays down over the grass, and it actually has all the seeds already built in there. And you can see right here, it does say it's a combination grass seed. So this will be a little bit different than the rest of ours, because all 3 other tests we're going to be using Kentucky bluegrass seed. This is only, a few percent Kentucky bluegrass seed. In comparison, it's mostly ryegrass, a little bit of fescue. That's what's in this. So you can argue that this is good, this is bad, but what we're doing is purely testing the blanket. So you can argue that this is a good test, this is a bad test. This is why I'm doing it on the far side, because people want to see if these blankets really work and actually how to use them. So that's what we're going to do today and see how well it works. Now, realistically, because it's a combination grass seed, it's not just Kentucky bluegrass, we should, and again, should, never know until we test something, right? We never really know, but expecting this to grow the quickest, but we shall see. So a lot of people will use these blankets and also hay-like product like this, and also peat moss, because of the fact that they really want the best chances for the grass to grow. Is it needed? Of course it's not needed. You saw that in my last video. I used absolutely nothing. I just prepared the ground well and put the Kentucky bluegrass and other seeds down. That's what I did. But now, maybe we can do better. We never know. We are always looking to do better in everything we do. Maybe this will make it grow faster. Maybe it'll have a greener result. Maybe it'll be less watering. Who knows? Let's find out together. So a lot of the reason people are using these products is because of the fact that once you put grass seed down, birds come down and they eat a lot of the bird seed. I'm sorry, it's not seed, it's grass seed, but that's exactly our problem. I mixed it up, and hey, guess what? Birds mix it up too. Birds don't actually know, I don't know if they don't have taste buds or whatever, but they actually eat grass seed, they'll eat their bird seed, they'll eat whatever seed that they see. How much? To each your own, nobody knows that. But I know if you guys are driving down the street and you see a whole bunch of, I don't know, seagulls, geese, ducks, whatever, on a cornfield, right after you just see a whole bunch of them there. You know what that is, right? That's because the farmers are seeding that whole area, and there's a ton of seed laying on the ground, so they are just drawn to there, and there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, it's not a coincidence, of those geese or birds, whatever kind of birds you want to talk about, and they're eating that seed. So it's a lot of extra expense, we'll say, and it's harder to grow because of the fact that now you're not consistent in the ground. But before we get into another tangent, it's going to be a long video because we have a lot of product to test, but as always, you guys can always skip down below in the comments. I always put the comment and the description, I always put timestamps there so you guys can skip over any of this talking that you don't want to hear. So just to show you this grass one more time, this was the grass seed test, this strip right here all the way across. You're not supposed to look at this side, that's a future test that I'm working on, and you're not supposed to look at this side either, that's another test. And hey, guess what, there's another test over there. Hey, stop looking, you guys are trying to get a sneak preview and you're not supposed to, all right? So what we're gonna do, just wanted to show you real quick. Here's the grass, nice grass, still good, and those I ripped up for a future video that I'm working on. So I'm working on a lot of videos for you guys. You guys love these tests, so that's what we're doing, testing, right? So I'm gonna rip up all this grass. So I really want you guys to love this video, and hopefully it's gonna help us out. I just bought all these products yesterday from Home Depot, so here we go. We are gonna start it up. All right, so first steps first. Don't need that, just gonna be in the way. I'm gonna dig a decent sized square for each of these tests, and you're gonna see 1, 2, 3, 4 different tests we're gonna do. And like I said earlier, and I'll explain again before we actually start, but now I'm gonna dig up my lovely seeded grass that worked good. So I'm not sure if you can tell in this video, but from what I'm looking at, and hopefully you guys are seeing the same thing, or maybe not hopefully, but this grass seed that we did greened up and is still greener and better looking than the rest of my grass. Maybe I should just rip out the whole thing everywhere in the backyard and just redo it all, right? Because this is all nice Kentucky bluegrass, and I have, unfortunately, I hate to admit it, but there's a lot more mix in here than I thought there used to be. So each year I'm getting better and better with that because I'm doing only Kentucky bluegrass seed, and hopefully that takes away from some of the ryegrass and fescue. But enough of a tangent, let's get digging. So now I am not happy to be ripping this up, but I'm doing it specifically for you guys. I wish I had a problem here. During the first video, the first grass seed video that you guys saw, I did have a little problem in my grass, so I didn't really mind digging it up and ripping out this whole section and doing that test for you, because of the fact that what I had here was a bird feeder. You can't really see it in the video here, but I had a bird feeder here, giant bird feeder, and then the squirrels come, they just eat, knock everything off, and then that messes up the ground all the way around it. So I had a little, not a bare spot, but pretty bare. So I figured, hey, 2 birds with 1 stone, make the video and also help myself with some to-do list, meaning fix the grass. All right, I'll try and do this about the same square. Unfortunately, I can see the actual difference between the 2 grasses, so I know exactly where to cut in the grass to make it the same size as the last test. And if you remember from the last grass seed test video, I was not completely happy. Reason being is because of the fact that I did not think about, while I was doing my video, that the grass afterwards, or I should say the ground settles afterwards. So even though I had it nice and level, and it is level here, but I don't really want it level because this whole thing should be pitching away from the house. So I'm gonna have a little bit more water here than I want because it's not going on a downhill like a decline. So there you have it. That is my one big thing of sod that was quite heavy to carry. Now, I'm not going to show you the rest of this. It's going to be too long a video anyways as it is, so I'm going to rip up the rest of this and then check back. All right, just wanted to show you guys the easiest way to take out sod or grass or whatever you're doing is to do little chunks. So, as you can see, when I did my first one, I tried to dig a little too much. Got a little over my head, but just want to show you how easy this really could be. So all you do is go all around the edges, take out the roots, and this is my last piece, finally. Then dig underneath, lift a little bit, dig, lift a little bit, and one more should do it. And there you go. That is how easy it should be. However, you can see over here, so you can see this monster over here. This is when I was getting a little too excited in the first one, and then thought, man, this shouldn't be this hard. So then I decided, let's do these more manageable strips, and this is much easier. Now keep in mind, this is better, a bigger strip, if you are actually going to reuse it. But my lawn, I don't really have any bad spots right now where I'm going to be using this, so just kind of an FYI. So it should be this easy. And here is a quick look of the after effect. You will see the ground is not very good looking. So next step, after you're here and you dug it all out, is to rake the ground. You want it as light and fluffy as possible, ideally. And you can either use this or this tool. I find this is going to get the job done a lot quicker, and then afterwards this is more of the, we'll call it smoothing out afterwards, in my opinion. So let's get to raking. So just going to make this as light as possible. Doesn't matter that much just because of the fact that we're putting in new dirt, but it's always good to have a loose base for the grass seed to grow in. Now, a lot of you guys already saw my first video based upon the grass seed proof. Now, you guys can skip ahead because realistically, you don't need this information again. What I'm going to do now is prep the ground, go over what I did through the first video just in case we have some new people that haven't seen the first video. So if you guys don't want to watch this part, feel free. You guys already know this from the last video, so click right here and you can see what time to skip forward to see the actual test. So what we're going to do now is level the ground using this guy, and then what we're going to do after that is put some manure, topsoil, and garden soil in. I like to use 1/3 of each and mix it all up together, and then we can have a good base for our seed. Alright, now that you can see, I have this all raked up so it's nice and fluffy. Now I'm going to use, we'll say, the finisher and smooth it all out before I put my final layer on. I personally like to take out all these big chunks. That's just me. Personally, also like to take out any rocks that you may have. For once, I actually don't have any rocks that I see or found, and that's because I dug this up 2 years ago and put in all fresh new stuff. So that's the good part about redoing this the second time for my part 2 video. Next step we're going to do is fill this wheelbarrow with some mixture of dirt and manure. So we'll put in the good stuff right now. So usually I use Miracle Grow for this 1/3, but this Vigor garden soil will do just fine. Gonna dump the whole thing in here. And I know you guys are gonna comment. I know you love the gloves, as ghetto and cheap as you can get. But I already messed up my nice gardening gloves today because I was fixing or replacing a fence post for my gate. So they're all full of concrete, cement, and clay. So we're gonna have to deal with it together, right? Now for the cheapo stuff, don't need to pay too much money for topsoil. So this stuff you can see is much lighter. Hopefully you can see that. It's a lighter black than the good stuff, the garden soil, which we just used. But that's why we're mixing it all together, right? Then, your favorite and mine, the manure. And I love to show this just because it's hilarious. This is what I like to use. Look at the back of this. Do you see this cow? That is just priceless. hilarious advertising and makes me buy it, right? This manure will give it a good base of nutrients, microorganisms, all that good stuff. So love to put this in anytime I put new plants or grass in, or even for this sake, grass seed. Now, last video, I mixed it with one of these, and this was pretty tedious. So you guys told me a better way. Just use something smaller like this, like a normal shovel. This will help mix it up better. So you see, I do listen to you guys. So make sure you let me know easier, better ways of doing everything in the future. Now this might not be the best way to do it. I know you guys were telling me the best way to do it, and you're right, is use like cement mixers. So because a cement mixer is a great idea, but it's just not something that I would really use enough to buy. But maybe I'm wrong, because clearly here I am doing this video once again, so maybe I should buy one and invest in it, right? So now that I mixed it there, I can't really get to the bottom with this, so I will go back to my old school, harder method and use the bigger shovel to get all the way at the bottom where that good soil is. So this part should be relatively easy. All you're gonna do is grab this nice loose dirt and throw it on. All right, there's our nice new fluffy base. Let's see if we have enough. And ideally, we want it to be just a hair above ground level. You don't want it even, you definitely don't want it below the ground level, or I should say the soil level from the surrounding grass. So what you want to do is have it a little bit higher. And the reason being because this ground, once the rain comes and you water it every single day, of course you're always going to water, right everybody? You're going to water religiously from now on. So the reason you want to put the ground a little bit higher than the surrounding ground levels, because after it rains and waters, this ground will sink down a little bit. It will level out below where you currently have it. Okay, now it's time for the fun part. Time to throw down that seed. This is our favorite part, I hope. So I'm only gonna seed this area. Normal seeding, you guys can do it by hand. Can't really go wrong, so it doesn't really matter too much if you do light seeding or heavy-handed seeding. But if you saw my last video, the heavy seeding actually turned out a little bit more dense, especially over time. If you saw my update of the grass seed video, that even shows that it's even thicker. So didn't have any problems either way. There wasn't too much competition from doing it heavy-handed seed versus light. So that being said, let's throw down some more. What the heck, right? Even though seed's not cheap, I know. But just for this video, we're gonna do a little extra. So there is my base. Looks pretty good to me. And keep in mind, we're still gonna rake it a little after this. Now, this is our base for the 3 tests over here. So keep in mind, for this first test, we're gonna use this lawn blanket, which has the seed already built there. And again, it's a mixture of seed, so it's not gonna be exactly the same from a seed standpoint. It's gonna be a little mixture. So let's take this off and put it down. Doesn't cut nice, but no big deal. I'm going to turn it around so we have a very clean line on this side, because we really want that line difference between test number 1 and test number 2. All right, there we have it, our nice, clean, trimmed off section of our seed blanket. Now, I didn't show it in this video, but underneath, you want to make sure that this white part is down on the ground if you're using this. So you want the green with the seeds pointing up. And they do recommend that you water underneath this first, and then you water afterwards, after you put it down. and you want to secure this with some stakes. So we'll put, I don't know, 4 stakes in here just to make sure that this doesn't blow away. So this is nice because of the fact that this will maintain the seeds in there better, because of the fact that the birds won't be able to get at this because the seeds are actually built in. And it's also supposed to retain the moisture better than just if it's on flat dirt, we'll say. All right, now that we have test number 1 done, test number 2 is going to be our normal Kentucky bluegrass seed with no messing around with the ground. And hey, we're already done. All right, test number 3. Now we use the peat moss. This is probably one of the more popular things people do, except you could either buy this peat moss from Miracle-Gro, which has a little Miracle-Gro helping it to grow quicker, but I also like the feel of this. It feels so light. I mean, look at how nice and light that is. And this is pretty much just what you want to do. This feels, I mean, like a cloud would feel, in my opinion. So I just love this stuff. I don't use it too often, but once in a while. Special occasions, we'll say. So this just sprays over the top and very nicely light coated. You don't want too much of this on there just because of the fact that it's going to need some sunlight. Therefore, it's going to need a good base. So we're just going to rinse this out, mess with it a little bit, get our hands dirty. I know you guys love to see me get my hands dirty because it's not too often I do that. And then throw on a little bit more. Now this stuff is great, and the best things about this is obviously it maintains moisture better because it's got something of a base over it, but it also provides food and a little bit of fertilizer inside of this stuff. And also the fact that, again, because you're covering it up, the birds will not be getting to it. Now, a lot of you are thinking, whoa, this moss, this is supposed to be white. And yes, that's true. You can get regular moss. I don't know if there's a whole bunch of mosses out there. There's organic mosses, there's mushroom mosses I've heard of, there's peat moss. Peat moss I think is the most popular, but there's some other ones out there that people like using, so to each their own. I'm not going to test every single one, but there you have it. I'll leave it right there for you guys. And now for the last one, test number 3. I'm sorry, test number 4. And now we're going to be using this. So this is pretty messy, as you can tell. I unraveled this, and just cutting this is going to be a wonderful pain. I can see that right now. But maybe it'll turn out better, right, than the rest. So we got to try it, right? So let's just pull off a little section here equal to our test. And you can watch me struggle and enjoy, all right? So let's cover this up, and then we will cut. Not sure the best way to cut this, probably with a scythe or maybe a garden shears or something. All right, so now we have our 4 tests. You can see they're laid out nicely. We have our grass seed blanket, we have our just Kentucky bluegrass seed, and we have our peat moss with Kentucky bluegrass seed, and we have our Kentucky bluegrass seed with a seed germination blanket, which does not have seed, and it's similar to hay or straw. And I'm also gonna make sure this is secured more. I'm gonna put in some stakes in this also, just to make sure this doesn't blow away because it's pretty flimsy. And the last step we're gonna do is cover this very lightly with a little bit of dirt. You don't want to cover too much, but again, I don't want the birds to be eating the Kentucky bluegrass seed. So this is what I recommend, and then lightly fluff it with your hand or your little shovel. All right? Just so that there's seed showing, mix it up a little bit, and there you go, you have a good base. All right, now the last step is we're gonna water. Water them all equally I'm not going to favor any section or test than the other. So it doesn't have to be too deep or anything. We just want to get the seed moist, and that will do it for this test. And now we will check back in future weeks, and we'll go probably week by week with this and see which is growing better than the others, all right? All right, now I want to talk very quickly about my watering schedule. So for seed, I'm going to use the same watering schedule for pretty much everything here. So the seed watering schedule that I like to use personally is watering in the first week. I like to water 3 times a day. It doesn't have to be deep or anything, but just water it. You always want seed to be moist. If the seed is not moist, then it will not be growing. So then after week 1, 3 times a day watering is over with. Then week 2, I recommend watering twice a day, always keeping that seed moist. So then week 4, what you're going to do is water every other day, but water deeply. So day 1, you're going to water deeply. Then day 2, you're not going to water. And what that's going to do is make those roots really thirsty, and they're going to dig deeper into the ground. And that's our goal. They're going to dig deeper to actually try and find water that's been stored in the ground deeper and deeper. And that's what we really want to do, because we want really deep roots. I don't know if you saw, but earlier in the video, when I dug up my Kentucky bluegrass that I planted here 2 years ago, I had some that were 8-inch roots, just by simple measuring, like 8 inches of root growth. And that's only in 2 years. You saw I started that from absolutely nothing, bare ground, just like you saw here. So that's pretty solid. So if that was done in 2 years, I wonder what the rest of my lawn is. Or maybe this is better, who knows, right? But like I said, that's what we want to do. Water deeply every other day. You want to starve your grass, or your roots, I should say, so that your roots are actually growing deeper and deeper into the ground. All right? And that goes even with established grass. It's never recommended to water lightly. You want to water deeply and less frequently, so the grass actually dries out and the roots dry out and grows deeper into the ground for deeper root growth. That is the most important, and it can withstand drought conditions and other problems better than other grasses. All right, next update will be after, we'll say, about a week. Then we'll see what's growing and what's not. Again, Kentucky bluegrass, these don't expect too much in the first week. Second week is really when it starts popping. You start seeing some grass blades come up. It's a little bit slower than the far left, which will be the ryegrass mostly, and the fescue. All right, stay tuned. All right, time for a 2-week update for the second grass seed test. So we have our first test here, which is the seed germination blanket with the actual seed, or I should say a mixture of seeds in there. And you can tell this shot up very quickly. You can see a lot of these grass blades. I mean, these are pretty tall height already. I mean, this is almost full grass height. I mean, some of these, see that? It's not completely thick yet, as you can tell, but looks pretty good. Not sure what's going to happen with the edge of the blanket or so here, but I'm curious. First time using this myself, so curious how this will be and how this will look after it's all done. And then you can see our straight Kentucky bluegrass for the second section here. We have pretty good germination all the way through. Very little grass blades coming up, but pretty consistent all the way throughout. Pretty nice. So then we have our Kentucky bluegrass third test here with the peat moss on top. And again, looks pretty similar to the last test. So there's the last test, and here is with the peat moss. Some spots it's a little bit better, but I guess it's probably too early to tell. But I just wanted to show you that 2 weeks in, we do have our bluegrass germination, and we see our nice little grass blades. Then for the last test, which is using this hay equivalent comparison. So if we look down below, it's kind of hard to see, but we'd have to actually look down below it. So some spots are a little bit more dense and some spots are more sparse with the lay. So you can see in here that there is some, grass germinating in here. You can see like right here. So you can see some. It's pretty rampant all the way through. It's just hard to tell. There's a bunch more right up in there. So it's all coming through pretty nice. So there you have it. So far, no big surprises. I'm just curious to see how this is going to lay out as far as all 4 of these tests, what it's going to look like at the end, because we're all interested in the end game. Of course, quickness definitely will go to the seed germination blanket, probably because it's just using a different type of seeds. But the question is, how full will it come versus how full and quick and thick the rest of these will come? I guess we'll have to stay tuned and find out. This is about 3 weeks later, and we've had a ton of rain, so bear with me here. It's going to be nice and wet. So our first test here was using the seed blanket, and the growth here, I mean, this sucker shot up really fast. I mean, if you look right here, it's actually full height already. Now you can tell that it's lighter in color than the other tests, but we'll get to that later. And just wanted to show you how this is actually growing. So it's very sporadic. Kind of surprising, since it's probably all laid down in the blanket perfectly, you would think at least. But you can see it's pretty sporadic as far as some growth in some places versus none in others. But overall, I don't know, I would say it's probably about 40%, maybe 30% growing. The rest of it, I'm not sure. We're going to have to check back in future weeks. Here is the Kentucky bluegrass with just Kentucky bluegrass, nothing else added. And we have pretty consistent growth all the way through. Maybe a little section right here in between this. I guess you can say it's on the line. I didn't get close enough, but it'll eventually fill in itself. Little missed section over here. Little missed section in the corner there. Maybe I didn't get too close, but this is your test. So overall, much thicker so far. And then this section was the Kentucky bluegrass seed with the peat moss added. So this seems to be pretty consistent with the last test. So here's the last test, and here it is with the peat moss added. So overall, pretty good. Don't really see many surprising differences, or standing out differences, we should say, between the two. So maybe the future weeks something will pop out at me. And then we have our last test here, which is the hay equivalent. And finally, we're seeing a lot more green underneath here. So this is growing pretty well now. Seemed to be a slower starter from what I was seeing, unless it was just all hiding. You can see it's all hiding under here pretty well. Can't really give you a good judge because I'm not going to rip it all off yet and show you underneath, but I assume this is growing at the same or equivalent pace as these other guys here. So stay tuned, and we will continue this test in future weeks. Alright, here is your 1 month update with a loud bird in the background. Here's our first test with the seed blanket. You can see the height here is pretty tall, but when you look straight down at it, you can see there's a lot of spottiness. So this is your seed blanket test. And here's your Kentucky bluegrass, just straight Kentucky bluegrass, nothing added. It's not as tall as the seed blanket is, because again, that grew quicker. That's different seed mixture. We know Kentucky bluegrass is a nice slow grower. It's a grower, not a shower, right? So overall, seems pretty good, except again for this
patch here, but we're going to say that that's due to bad seeding because I'm unlined. Overall, no open patches, and coming in pretty thick overall. And this is the next test, our third seed test, and this is with the Kentucky bluegrass with the peat moss added. And overall, doesn't seem to be much, if any, different versus without peat moss. And then this is an interesting test. This is Kentucky bluegrass seed with the hay or straw-like material, also known as a seed blanket without the seed. Our first test had the seed already built into the blanket. This is a blanket for seed, but the seed's not included. And you can tell it's a little over a month now, and most of this hay-like material has already decomposed, and it's all gone almost. Very little left. And you can tell the growth in here actually looks pretty nice and pretty thick. There's a few little patch spots here and here, and I'll show you again from the top. But overall, it's pretty good. And surprisingly, not really sure why this is, but you can tell the height of this grass. So those are pretty low versus this. This actually grew quite a bit taller. Not really sure why. Maybe you guys can help me understand that. But hey, I'm just doing a test. And of course, yep, you can tell how long and tall that is over there in our first test. But again, that's different grass. That's what we expected. So there we have it. There is our 4 seed tests after 1 month. And just in case there's any new developments, I'll check back once this Kentucky bluegrass and these sections are fully grown, and also this, because you never know, maybe this will all fill in itself. Leftover seed needs to germinate still maybe. So we shall see in maybe a month or so. I'm not going to update this every week. We've done that for the first month. You can see the growth now as far as how quick it is, what color, and so forth. But we'll check back whenever the grass is fully grown and ready to cut.
Thank you again, everybody, for watching this grass seed part 2 test video. Now, if you haven't checked out my part 1, make sure you check that out. It's in the description below. That was very helpful for a lot of people, and this video is kind of a step up or more advanced in case, okay, you already have your base as far as how to grow grass seed well. Now we're going to take it one step further, which we did in this video, which says, hey, do we need peat moss? Can we use a seed blanket? Another seed germination blanket, meaning with the hay or straw-like material. Based upon what you guys have seen, I think we can consider this case closed. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and as always, subscribe for more.